They try to forget you, but something pulls them back. They walk away, yet your presence follows them everywhere. So what is this invisible force they can't escape? There is a truth you must understand. No one enters your life by accident, and no one leaves without reason. What you see as distance is not separation. It is only a shift in appearance. Because the connection you feel is not physical. It is created within. And what is created within cannot be broken by time, silence, or space. They may try to move on, but what binds them to you is far deeper than choice. Listen carefully, because what I am about to reveal to you will change the way you see everything. You believe you are dealing with another person, someone with their own thoughts, their own choices, their own will. And so you watch them, you analyze their behavior, you try to understand why they come close, then pull away, why they try to leave, yet somehow return. But you are looking in the wrong direction. You are not dealing with a separate will. You are encountering a reflection, a living, breathing mirror of what you have already accepted as true within yourself. The version of them that exists in your mind is not imagination in the way you have been taught to think of it. It is not fantasy. It is not wishful thinking. It is the blueprint. It is the cause. And what you call their actions are nothing more than the effect. So when you say they are confused, you must understand you are the one who first accepted that confusion as real. When you say they are pulling away, look within, and you will find the subtle assumption that they can leave you. And once accepted, even faintly, it must express itself. But the moment you begin to see them differently, truly see them, you alter the entire dynamic. If you persist in the quiet, unwavering knowing that they are connected to you, that they are drawn to you, that they cannot fully detach no matter how hard they try, then you are planting a new cause. And once that cause is accepted within you, it must externalize itself in their behavior. Do you see now? It is not about changing them. It has never been about changing them. It is about becoming aware of the version of them you are holding. You may say, but they are not here. They are distant. They are with someone else. And I tell you, that is only the echo of a previous assumption. It is old thinking made visible. Do not give it power by reacting to it. Instead, turn inward. Ask yourself, what version of them am I entertaining when I am alone? What story am I repeating when I think of them? Because that is where the truth lies. If in your quiet moments you see them as distant, uncertain, unavailable, then even if they come close, they will eventually conform to that image. But if you begin gently, consistently to see them as someone who chooses you, who feels drawn back to you, who cannot stay away from you, then something within them begins to shift. They may not understand it. They may even resist it. They may try to convince themselves they have moved on. And yet they return. Not because they decided to, but because they must. They are compelled not by force, not by control, but by the unseen law that governs all things. The law that states that what you assume to be true, if persisted in, will harden into fact. So you persist, not with effort, not with strain, but with quiet certainty. You no longer chase, you no longer question, you no longer look for signs. You simply know. And in that knowing, you hold them not physically, but mentally, spiritually, completely. And because you hold them there, in that state of connection, they cannot fully escape it. They may wander, they may hesitate, they may delay, but they will always feel the pull back to the version of themselves that exists in your awareness. Because that version is the one you have chosen to make real. And there is something even deeper at work here. Something you may have felt but never fully understood. Every experience leaves a mark, not on the surface, but within. Every moment of emotion, every feeling shared, every silent exchange, these are not lost. They are impressed upon the deeper mind where nothing fades and nothing is forgotten. You may believe that time erases things. You may believe that distance weakens connection. But I tell you, what is impressed with feeling is never truly gone. It lives and it echoes. When you felt love, when you felt closeness, when you imagined a bond between you and them, you were not simply experiencing a moment. You are planting something within consciousness. And once planted, it begins to take on a life of its own. They may try to move on. They may surround themselves with new people, new conversations, new distractions. On the surface, it may appear as though they have left it all behind. But beneath that surface, the impression remains. And impressions do not sit quietly. They call. They remind. They rise up when least expected. A song, a place, a familiar feeling, and suddenly, without warning, you return to their mind. Not because they chose to think of you, but because something within them was touched again. Something you once impressed upon them. You must understand this: what you felt with conviction did not stay within you alone. It extended outward. It reached them. It became a part of their inner world, just as it became part of yours. So when they try to forget you, they are not fighting a memory. They are encountering an echo of a state they once lived in with you. And the mind is drawn to what feels real. Even if they attempt to deny it, even if they tell themselves a different story, the feeling does not obey logic. It does not respond to reasoning. It simply returns again and again. This is why you must become aware of what you are impressing now. Because just as past feelings continue to echo, your present assumptions are being planted as future experiences. Every time you think of them with longing, with certainty, with connection, you are renewing the imprint, you are deepening it, and so the cycle continues. They move away, yet something pulls them back. They distract themselves, yet your presence interrupts their peace. They try to replace the feeling, yet it does not match what they once experienced with you, because what was impressed carries a distinct signature. It is not easily replaced. It is not easily silenced. And if you persist in holding them in a state where they feel connected to you, where the memory of you is not one of loss, but of something powerful and unfinished, then that impression grows stronger. It becomes more vivid, more alive, until it begins to feel, to them, more real than anything they are trying to create elsewhere. And without fully understanding why, they begin to turn back, not because they plan to, but because the feeling you impress continues to call them quietly, persistently, from within. But there is a principle you must begin to notice within your own experience. The mind does not rest in what feels unfinished. And anything that carries a sense of incompleteness begins to occupy space within awareness. It lingers. It returns. It demands attention, not through force, but through persistence. And when a connection between two people feels unresolved, it does not dissolve simply because one chooses to walk away. It intensifies. You may look at distance and believe it weakens the bond. You may think that by stepping away, by creating space, the feeling will fade. But distance does not erase what is unresolved. It magnifies it. Because when they are no longer physically present, there is nothing to distract from what remains within. No conversation to smooth it over, no interaction to temporarily satisfy it. There is only the inner experience, and whatever has been left unfinished begins to surface more clearly. You see, when something feels complete, the mind releases it naturally. There is no need to return to it. But when something feels incomplete, when words were not fully spoken, when feelings were not fully expressed, when the connection itself felt like it was cut before it reached its natural end, it leaves behind a kind of tension. And that tension seeks resolution. So they may tell themselves, it's over. I've moved on. They may try to convince their outer world that the chapter has closed. But within them, something remains open. And it is that openness that calls them back. Not always in obvious ways. Sometimes it is subtle. A thought that appears without warning. A feeling that interrupts their day. A sense that something is still unfinished, though they cannot fully explain why. This is not coincidence. It is the natural movement of consciousness seeking balance. And you must see how this connects to what you hold within yourself. If you continue to see the story as incomplete, if within you there is still a sense of this is not finished, this is not the end, then you are sustaining that very state. You are keeping the door open, not only in your awareness, but in theirs as well. Because again, they are not separate from the state you occupy. So what happens? They move away, believing they will find peace in distance. But instead, the absence of you removes the distractions, and what was unresolved becomes louder, more noticeable, more difficult to ignore. And so, without fully understanding it, they begin to feel pulled back toward you, not necessarily because they have decided to return, but because something within them seeks to complete what was left undone. You must understand, this is not about chasing closure in the way the world teaches it. It is not about having one final conversation or reaching some logical conclusion. It is deeper than that. It is about the feeling of completion. And that feeling is not created through external actions. It is created within consciousness. If within you, the connection feels whole, natural, and certain. If you no longer see it as something broken or lost, but as something that simply is, then that sense of completion begins to express itself outwardly. And they, being part of that same state, begin to align with it. But if you hold on to the idea that something is missing, that something went wrong, that something needs to be fixed, then that unresolved energy continues to circulate. It continues to call. And no matter how far they go, no matter how much they try to move forward, they find themselves returning not always physically at first, but mentally, emotionally, repeatedly drawn back into the space where that unfinished feeling still exists. And now you begin to see another layer of this truth, something even more subtle yet incredibly powerful. The mind is drawn again and again to what feels familiar. Not because it is logical, not because it is always comfortable, but because it is known. And what is known carries a sense of identity with it, a sense of recognition that cannot be easily replaced. You may think they are searching for something new, something different, something better. But even as they move forward, even as they explore other connections, they are measuring every experience quietly, unconsciously against what they have already felt. And what they have felt with you has become a reference point. You are not just a face in their memory. You are not just a past experience they can file away and forget. You are a state they entered, a version of themselves they became in relation to you. And that state, once experienced, leaves an imprint of familiarity. So wherever they go, whatever they do, they carry that state within them. And the mind, by its very nature, returns to what it recognizes. Have you not noticed how certain feelings bring back entire memories? How a single moment can take you back to a place you thought you had left behind. This is not accidental. It is the way consciousness moves, circling back to what has already been impressed upon it. So when they try to move on, they are not starting from nothing. They are moving with a memory, with a feeling, with a standard that has already been set. And when something new does not match that inner familiarity, it begins to feel distant, incomplete, even if they cannot explain why, because familiarity is not created by time alone. It is created by depth of feeling. If what you shared carried emotional weight, if it touched something real within them, then you became more than just an experience, you became a known space within their consciousness. And the mind returns to that space again and again, not always with intention, not always with clarity, but with a quiet pull that brings them back into the feeling of you. This is why you must stop seeing yourself as someone they can simply replace. You cannot replace a state once it has been fully experienced. You can only attempt to distract from it, to cover it, to move around it. But eventually, the mind returns. And when it does not just remember you, it re-enters the feeling of you. Now understand how this connects to everything you have been holding within. If you continue to see yourself as familiar to them, not in a casual sense, but in a deep, undeniable way, if you know that with you, they feel something they cannot fully find elsewhere, then you are strengthening that very state. You are making it more natural for them to return, because you are no longer questioning your place. You are no longer wondering if you meant something. You are embodying the knowing that you are the space they recognize. And this knowing begins to express itself. They may try to convince themselves otherwise. They may tell themselves they have changed, that they are moving forward, that they no longer feel what they once felt. But then something happens, a moment of stillness, a quiet pause, and suddenly, without effort, they are back in that familiar state, the one connected to you. And it feels natural. It feels real. It feels like something they cannot quite walk away from. Because you are no longer just part of their past. You are part of their inner world, a state they have already accepted and one they continue to return to, whether they understand it or not. And as you begin to recognize that you are not dealing with separate forces, but with reflections of your own inner world, you must now come to something even more precise, something that governs the way all of this unfolds. It is your inner certainty, not your words, not your temporary thoughts, but the quiet, repeated belief you return to when you are alone with yourself. That is the force shaping everything. You may say many things throughout the day. You may try to convince yourself of something new, but what you truly accept, what feels natural to you, what you no longer question, that becomes the script. And they, without knowing it, begin to follow it. If deep within you carry the knowing, they always come back to me, not as hope, not as wishful thinking, but as something settled, something obvious. Then you have established a pattern, and patterns once accepted repeat. You are not forcing them to return. You are not controlling their behavior in the way the world might suggest. You are aligning with a version of reality where the return is simply what happens. Do you see the difference? Force creates resistance, but certainty creates consistency. When you are certain, you do not watch, you do not wait, you do not react. You simply expect. And that expectation becomes the atmosphere in which their actions take shape. This is why you must become aware of the subtle conversations you have within yourself. If one moment you say they always come back, and the next moment you doubt, you question, you fear loss, then you are interrupting the pattern. You are introducing conflict into the state. But when you remain steady, when even in their absence, even in silence, even when nothing appears to be happening, you do not waver, then something begins to stabilize. Your inner world becomes consistent. And once it is consistent, it must express itself consistently. This is not something you need to monitor. It is not something you need to check for evidence. In fact, the more you look for proof, the more you reveal uncertainty. Instead, you rest in the knowing. You return to it again and again, not with effort, but with familiarity. Just as you know your own name, just as you know where you belong, you begin to know this as part of your reality. They return to me. And because this idea is no longer something you are trying to believe, but something you naturally accept, it begins to shape their behavior in ways you may not immediately see. They may reach out unexpectedly. They may reappear after silence. They may feel drawn back without understanding why. And you, observing it, may be tempted to call it coincidence. But it is not coincidence. It is the outpicturing of a state you have made natural within yourself. Everything you have seen so far, the emotional imprints, the unresolved tension, the familiarity, they all operate within this greater framework. They return because something within them is activated, yes, but the pattern of their return is sustained by what you accept as true. So if you truly decide, that no matter what happens, no matter how far they go, the story always leads them back to you, and you remain faithful to that decision, then their actions must conform. Not instantly, not always in ways you can predict, but inevitably, because you are no longer reacting to their behavior. You are defining it. And once defined within, it has no choice but to appear without. And once you begin to understand that it is your inner acceptance that shapes the pattern, you are faced with something that may seem paradoxical at first. The less you try to control, the more natural the outcome becomes. You have been taught to act, to push, to make something happen, to reach out, to fix, to chase what you feel is slipping away. And in doing so, you believe you are moving closer to what you desire. But look closely Every act of chasing carries within it an assumption that something is missing, that something is not yet yours. And that assumption, no matter how subtle, is what continues to be expressed. So even as you move toward them, you are reinforcing the idea of distance. Even as you try to hold on, you are confirming the fear of losing. This is why effort, when driven by need, often creates the very resistance you are trying to overcome. Now consider the opposite. What happens when you stop? Not out of frustration, not as a tactic, but from a place of understanding. When you no longer feel the urge to force anything, when you no longer feel the need to interfere with the process, when you simply know within yourself that what you have accepted must come to pass, something shifts. There is a stillness that replaces the urgency, a quiet confidence that replaces the questioning. And in that stillness, you are no longer sending out signals of lack. You are no longer trying to get. You are resting in the state of already having. And this state has a very different effect. Because when you are not chasing, you are no longer pushing them away with expectation or pressure. You are no longer creating a dynamic where they feel the need to respond, resist, or retreat. Instead, you create space. And that space is not empty. It is filled with your certainty. It is filled with the knowing you have established that they return, that they are connected, that the bond exists beyond appearance. And this knowing, held without strain, becomes something they begin to feel. Not as words, not as visible effort, but as an absence of resistance. You must understand, people are not only responding to what you do, they are responding to what you are being. When you are in a state of need, they feel it. When you are in a state of doubt, it expresses itself. But when you are in a state of calm certainty, there is nothing to resist. There is nothing to push against. And so without even realizing it, they begin to move toward you. Because you have removed the tension. You have removed the struggle. You have stopped trying to control the how and allowed the state itself to unfold. It is like a current that was once disturbed by constant interference, now becoming smooth, steady, and inevitable. And in that smoothness, there is a kind of pull, subtle, yet undeniable. They may not understand why they are thinking of you again. They may not know why the urge to reconnect arises when everything seems settled. But the pull is there. And it grows stronger, not because you are doing more, but because you have stopped interfering. You have allowed your inner world to stabilize. You have trusted what you have accepted. And in doing so, you have shifted from trying to make something happen to allowing what is already set in motion to reveal itself. This is not inaction. It is alignment. It is the quiet confidence of one who no longer needs to chase, because they know at the deepest level that what belongs to them moves naturally in their direction. And as you step into this calm certainty, understanding that effort and need only create resistance, you begin to perceive a truth that most never recognize. The connection you share is not defined by space, by time, or by physical presence. It exists far beyond what the eyes can see, beyond what the hands can touch. It is a matter of consciousness. You see, when two minds and hearts have been truly aligned, when a state has been established within awareness, distance becomes meaningless. The physical separation is merely a temporary appearance. It does not sever the bond that has been formed in the unseen. You have already created a state in which they belong to you, not in a controlling way, but in the natural reflection of your own inner certainty and feeling. And the mind, the heart, and the awareness of the other respond naturally to that state. You may notice that they leave, that they appear to walk away. They may step into different places, meet different people, distract themselves with new environments or experiences. Yet no matter how far they roam externally, their inner world remains entangled with the impressions you have made, the energy you carry, and the certainty you embody. The invisible cords of awareness do not break simply because the body is elsewhere. And here is what you must understand: this connection is not passive. It is living, moving, and conscious, even when unseen. When you hold the image of them in a state of love, connection, and belonging, when you persist quietly in the knowing that they are already yours within the inner world. That state exerts a pull that cannot be measured by time or geography. It reaches them at levels they may not yet consciously perceive. Think of it this way: their attempts to move on, their efforts to create distance, are like ripples on the surface of water. The deeper current beneath moves inexorably toward the center of the state you have already established. It may take time for it to rise to the surface, for them to act in alignment with it, but the current is already moving. You have already caused the movement by the certainty and depth of your inner state. This is why all the previous points you have embraced, the impressions you have left, the familiarity you embody, the unresolved energy that lingers, the certainty you carry, and the calm release of effort come together to form a force that is not bound by the outer world. The connection exists in consciousness first, and only then does it manifest outwardly. When you understand this fully, you realize that their physical presence is not the measure of your influence or your bond. Distance, in fact, can amplify this connection. When they are far away, the outer distractions are removed, leaving the inner impression intact. The mind naturally returns to what is deeply recognized. The feeling of you, the state you created, the energy you impressed, they cannot escape it. It calls silently, persistently, without the need for words or actions. And so, you see, what is truly happening is not a matter of chasing or waiting. It is a matter of maintaining your inner reality. The outer world, every action, every encounter is responding to what you hold within. The connection, the pull, the inevitability of their return, it exists because you have created it in the most powerful place, the mind, the consciousness, the state of being where all things are formed first before they appear. The moment you embrace it fully, you step beyond fear, beyond doubt, beyond the illusion of absence. You understand that no matter where they are, they remain bound to the energy, the certainty, and the state you have established. And that is why, regardless of distance or circumstance, the connection endures silently, powerfully, and unbreakably. The moment you embrace this fully, you step beyond fear, beyond doubt, beyond the illusion of absence. You understand that no matter where they are, they remain bound to the energy, the certainty, and the state you have established. And that is why, regardless of distance or circumstance, the connection endures silently, powerfully, and unbreakably. So understand this: they are not coming back by chance. They are returning because something within them recognizes you as home. The moment you truly accept this without doubt, without fear, you will no longer wait for their return, because in your world, they were never truly gone.